All right. We are live. It's Wednesday. It's 9 o'clock, a little bit after 9 o'clock. Welcome to BRAP, everyone. I couldn't hear the intro music on my headset, so hopefully those of you that are watching heard that great intro. I don't know what's going on. Might have to check OBS again. Got to mess around with it. Anyhow, got a great show in store for everyone. First of all, I want to give a shout out to everyone in the live chat. Hit that like button. If you haven't done so, please retweet the link to the show. I'm actually going to drop the link to the show right now if you want to mind retweeting that as well. Appreciate it. And we have two guests joining us. Actually, just on a quick programming note, B Money and Eric Jackson and Slow-Mo Backslap will not be with us tonight. We're going to miss them, but they will not be here tonight. I think Forte may be joining us. I'm not sure, but hopefully he does. But we do have two great returning guests joining us tonight.
Why do I get the feeling they're all hanging out together?
No, we're not, man.
I think no. I think Slow-Mo, B Money.
You think okay?
And Eric, yeah. I think they're all like at a basketball game or something. Maybe they're playing 2K.
They might be, maybe they're, like you said, maybe they're at a basketball game and BRAP wasn't invited. That could be something, you know. But but we do have, as I mentioned, two great returning guests, and actually I'll introduce Evan Bourne, Saga, Mr. Evan Bourne, who's been with us here before. Evan Bourne, thank you for joining us tonight, Megan. Always a pleasure having you on, even though we don't always agree on the console stuff, but that's okay.
The only thing we don't agree on is Halo, because you're a Halo hater, sir. But we will
no. I'm not a Halo hater. We're gonna talk Halo tonight, but I'm not a Halo hater.
Then it sounds like I'm going to be doing some apologizing.
Yeah,
some Halo apologizing.
You might not if the campaign doesn't hit next week, but we'll talk about that a little bit. So
you're going to block me if the campaign is a hit. I'm telling you.
No. Hey, if it's a hit, that's great. Like that's even better. So Buck Rogers said the music worked. Thank you for that, Buck. Appreciate it. Then we also have returning guests, Game Logic. Welcome back to BRAP, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, man. It's been a long day on Twitter.
It's been an interesting day on Twitter, right?
Long week, I should say. Almost. It seems like before the holiday. It's been deep.
Yeah, it's been a lot of interesting conversations with the Black Friday stuff and stuff like that. So it's interesting takes on things and yeah. So social media. Just leave it at that. Interesting thought on social media. Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy? Has anyone seen that? I don't know if you guys
absolutely have. Yes, from Mike Judge. Yes. It is one of the most I think important films in the last I don't know how long. It was so prophetic. My God.
I think that movie's a preview.
Like there was 1984 and then Idiocracy in terms of predicting the future.
That's actually, I never thought of that like that. It's actually a great point, Everborn. Yes, I have. I feel like we're heading that direction, and I said that to someone.
Wait, you said heading? We're heading there.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying we're already there?
We have arrived, sir.
No, I don't think so. No one's drinking Brondo yet, and no one's watching a show where someone just gets kicked in the balls all the time. We haven't hit that point yet, have we?
Unless you isolate the world of Twitter. If you think of Twitter as an idiocracy biodome, right? It's its own thing, and it's its own kind of crucible of an environment. As long as we stay contained on there, the world might be okay. But if what is Twitter leaks out and becomes the rest of the world, we've got idiocracy.
I
would argue Twitter leaked out when the Capitol was invaded. But that is
I was
for another day.
Look, I got to be honest with you. Like I'm not trying to take this in a political direction, but Everborn has a point. Like when I saw, and if you hear like the QAnon conspiracy theorists and stuff, and you see the misinformation with regards to the pandemic, and even as simple as posting a PlayStation 5 console on Facebook's market page, the reactions, because I did that recently, and the comments that I got, it's like, you guys, what are we doing here? You guys are upset that someone's selling a PlayStation 5 for, with 3 games, an extended warranty, a year of PlayStation Plus for, $1,200. Have you not gone on eBay? Do you not know what the market, the secondary market is charging for the? I mean, like, it's, and the comments I was getting, it just nothing to do with, nothing constructive. It just, people are just like, hey, I'm just going to sound off. I'm just going to tweet, or I'm just going to, it was mind blowing. And so I really think, I think the biome is leaked. I think that we are heading in that direction. I hate to say it.
Well, let me add on to Game Logic's point and be a little philosophical. Not really philosophical. If it's philosophy, it's philosophy 101 for the chumps. But is it possible, right, that people in general are just angry, right? Whether they're angry at their wife or their job or their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is, right? And then they see Twitter as an outlet for this anger. And perhaps it is healthier for them to scream into the void of people they would never meet and release that rage that way. And isn't it better for us to argue about nonsense like console wars or Star Wars or DC versus Marvel or whatever than actually arguing about important things where people get killed? Right?
I mean, there's part of me that, like, I was with you for a little bit, and it's nothing you said. It's just how I was processing it. Part of me was like, yeah, maybe we inject that stuff into Twitter, and that's what keeps it from boiling over in the real world. But then when I go back to what BRAP said about, well, I mean, I'm not trying to be political, but as a historical event, I think of it as the insurrection. That's the label I give it. So when you talk about the insurrection of January, like, but then I feel like, no, social media is what connects people, including kind of the crazies, and allows that stuff to boil over. So I can't really tell. I would like to think that it's a relief valve, but
what I'm arguing is, if all those people were on council war Twitter instead of politics Twitter, perhaps the Capitol wouldn't have been invaded.
I think
I'm just saying, let's argue about the stuff that don't matter.
I think everyone, the behavior is the same. The outcome of the two things have been different, where there's been an insurrection at the Capitol in one instance. We just haven't had an insurrection at Sony's headquarters or Microsoft's headquarters just yet. But that's probably coming.
Operative word, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. It's wild times, but I just always think of that movie when I think of social media. It's just some of the things that I read, and I struggle with this idea that
how long before Terry Crews gets elected?
Yeah, well, I struggle with this idea too that that maybe that there's always, these people have always existed. Well, no, I think they've always existed. Now they just have a voice, right? But I don't know. I don't want to say like people are dumb, like a lot of people. I don't want to say, but they are dumb people out there. People are dumb. Like,
dumb. But the thing is, you're either going to give everyone a voice or you're not, right? And I think that all social media is basically a black mirror, right? And it amplifies what we already are, I think, as a society, right? The only difference now is you can see what your crazy neighbor is saying, what he would just say to his buddies. Now he says it, into the void. And they call it Black Mirror because if you turn your phone off, you have a black mirror looking back at you. But your phone just shows you yourself. So you can, or we could, right, use all this technology we have. Think about this. We're broadcasting live right now. You used to need to be Tom Brokaw to do this shit, right? Anyone can have a voice, right? And when you take away the gatekeepers that used to decide what we saw and what was, determined as newsworthy or entertainment worthy, those gatekeepers and barriers are gone. So now this is what you get. And I would argue I would rather it this way, where BRAP can go live whenever he wants, but there are still other people that I have to mute and block, than the way we used to have it, right? So this is inevitable.
And you unfortunately get the same behavior. So the things that you see in, I'll think of it as regulated journalism, right? Where we should have golden yardsticks of value and quality, right? So you think about like the newscasters of the past. I'll just hold them up as an example, like you mentioned, Tom Brokaw versus, right, some of the other sensationalist, fear mongering kind of journalistic outlets. But then, unfortunately, you get the exact same thing in social media when it was all democratized, which I used to think that democratizing and giving everyone a voice was a good thing. But as of late, especially really since this console generation, for some reason, I definitely think that it's like a bad thing, because we have so many people contributing to the conversation who unfortunately are, to say it outright, are not not informed, and are not really seeking knowledge, but are just out to blabber, right, and to gain attention. And typically the less informed opinions are the ones that get the most traction.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Like for me, like the fact that the less informed opinions tend to get the most traction is mind-boggling to me. Like I see this daily on Twitter. I see it with other content creators who have, podcasts. The amount of misinformation and things that they speak on that where they have no knowledge of, and people just run with that stuff like it's fact, and it's scary.
But here's the thing: people want to hear what they want to hear. Right?
Confirmation bias,
right? And at the end of the day, when you do not have those sort of arbiters of these are the journalistic standards or whatever it is, and even those can be called into question when you think about the way things have been reported over the since the printing press, right? Listen, the best thing about social media is that it gives everyone a voice, and the worst thing about social media is that it gives everyone a voice.
right. Exactly.
So I just think that this, first of all, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle, so we can forget about that. But I will say this, right? Everything you see and the things that gain traction versus the things that don't, and the drama that sells. Listen, we've all heard the term sex sells, right? It is all sex, right? It's all drama, and that is what we are attracted to. So the problem is not Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. I'd argue the problem is us, right? Because again, think about what we have right now. You don't even need to go to college to and hear me out here. Like, you can literally teach yourself anything you want. You could use the powers that are just you have a library in your pocket. You have training right in front of you. Anything you want to learn right now, you can learn it. You can teach yourself to code, right? If you do not have a job right now, right? And I am saying this as a person who used to be on Medicaid and food stamps less than a decade ago, right? I'm saying this as a person who taught himself how to code and developed mobile games literally from YouTube, right? These are things we could do. If you want to write, you can follow people who teach, that's the content they provide, teaching people how to write. You can join those communities, like-minded people, to do positive things. But the fact is, that is not most of us. So the tools are there for us to do good with it. But what we do as humans is the shit we're complaining about right now. Right?
Yeah, I know. It's not, yeah, and I hope, nothing that I've been saying is to be attributed to the platform. It's attributable to the human dynamic and the interaction that occurs on the platform, right? And what is attributed, truth or sanctity or attraction or, whatever.
Yeah, and again, this is not to be in defense of Google or Twitter or Facebook. They are terrible companies. I'm just saying I appreciate where we are now, where people can create for themselves and create their own. And this may sound bad, but create their own tribes and reach their audiences directly without the gatekeepers that have proven to be not the best of. They've had great power, and they didn't use their responsibility properly, because guess what? There are a lot of voices that have been silenced, right? And now, if you have the right thing to say, you can create a following for yourself. And we could also get into the people that have been banned from social media, but they're still well known enough to where they create their own websites and people go follow them now. So I'm like, en masse, I think this is good. as dire as the straits that we're in.
It's like I always say, I kind of think back to like the notions of citizenship, right, with like the Roman Empire, which maybe isn't the greatest shining example, but as a nation, but that notion of citizenship, which kind of gets echoed. It's kind of a silly fictional reference, but like in Starship Troopers, and I always say, like, be a good gaming citizen of the gaming nation, right? Figure out the things to contribute and the things to give, and be less concerned about the things that you can or try to take out of the community.
That's a great point.
Point out though, right? If I just said right now, Google, Facebook, Twitter, shitty companies, nobody gets mad, right? Because why would you get mad, and why would you jump in front of a criticism bullet for these billion-dollar corporations? Right?
Say that about PlayStation and Xbox. See what happens.
No, but this is the problem, right? Say something bad right now about Xbox or PlayStation, and some people are going to be in their feelings as though you insulted their fucking great dead aunt, right? Like, why? Why do you see that? Nobody gets mad when if I said fuck Disney right now, people are like, yeah, I like the Marvel movies, but yeah, fuck them. Who cares? What is it?
If someone said fuck McDonald's, nobody would care.
Right. So that's the thing. What is it about? What is the connection between consumer and company that councils have that causes this kind of vitriol? I still don't understand that.
I think it's rooted in tribalism, and
why don't you get that with Warner Brothers? Right? Why don't you get that with
Universal? We see this in sports, right? I mean, gentlemen, we see this in sports, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was the analogy I was thinking of.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to sports is very much tribal. I mean, sports, the identity to a city and a team, that's tribalism. And I think the same thing has happened with console gaming.
Is sports Twitter like this though?
Probably.
Maybe it is. I don't
is.
follow sports at all.
I don't follow sports Twitter, but I would imagine it's probably. I mean, come on, we've all had the conversations with our friends, of sports. It's like, Tom Brady's a cheater. Tom Brady's this. The Patriots are. They're they steal plays. etc. I mean, we all heard those conversations.
See, I don't know, because here's the thing.
You've heard people say, "I hate Tom Brady." I've heard that.
I've heard that a lot. That is true. However, What I will say is I'm on gaming Twitter and movie Twitter a lot, right? And no one that I've seen in movie Twitter defends the companies. They might defend an IP that they like. So I say that to say, I understand if somebody says, I'm a God of War fan. So I'm gonna, as the kids say, I'm gonna cap all day about God of War. Or like me, I'm a Halo apologist, right? And I'll argue with you up and down about Halo. I just don't understand the big mega corporation and why do we get so attacked? Whether it's right or wrong, why is that?
No, I agree. I mean, one of the things, Brad, that I think about too is when we talk about, is sports Twitter worse? Sports Twitter is, I don't know how many Cowboys fans there are in the country, right? But let's just say the state of Texas, right? That's a number of people. But when we talk about gamers, and granted, all those gamers are on Twitter, right? But we're talking, 150 million PlayStation gamers, 130 million PC gamers, 80, 90 million Xboxers, and 80, 90 million Nintendo people, right? So it just seems like the numbers contribute to like the just mass volume of vitriol that mounts up, or I don't know.
I mean, thinking about this out loud, right? We've seen the Mac versus PC arguments and the iOS versus Android arguments, and maybe the VHS versus Betamax, or
I'm old enough to I'm old enough to remember the Beta versus VHS days. I remember that. That actually was a thing. I had VHS and I had friends that had Beta. They're like, "Oh, Beta's better."
And that's funny. I drew one of these analogies and talked about it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and I lived in and actively participated in some of those that you just mentioned. Ever is, the Mac versus PC, Intel versus AMD, Intel powered Mac versus PowerPC powered Mac. Like, I was in those conversations, and I was a hardware reviewer at the time. One of the key differences that I talked about a couple of weeks ago is in like the PC gaming community. And I was around, with the rise of like forums, right, before we had Twitter, and before Dig, right, went under and became something different, and kind of the flame wars moved to comments and like in Web 2.0. But back in those days, you would get these things where like there would be a very intense argument over NVIDIA versus AMD or ATI at the time. But I feel like that space has matured now. And in the PC gaming space, what I talked about on Twitter is console gamers today war over these two brands, predominantly because it seems like the Nintendo people just don't even participate in the conversation anymore. But like as a PC gamer, I'm like, look, man, there's like 9 different brands in one PC that I run, and I run more than one PC. Right, I was like, I don't have time to bicker back and forth about ASRock versus Gigabyte and Corsair versus Mushkin, right, and all these different brands. Like, the world is bigger and more complex, and so that this notion of the console war maybe feels kind of petty in a PC gaming space. And you do get in forums, you get every once in a while, you get somebody, the classic question in the forums, is this a good config, right? Because somebody goes to Parts Picker and picks their parts. But those flame wars are fairly brief. They are also incredibly detailed for you to participate in them. So this thing that happens on Twitter where, I think one of the funny ones I saw today was an Xboxer who said, I'm probably the only Xbox person who doesn't subscribe to Game Pass. I want to buy my games. I don't like to rent them. And I'm like, I think we need to have a discussion about whether or not you own anything for which there is a EULA. I buy a car, I don't sign a EULA, right?
That's a great point.
That mentality, I don't really get that. But my point is, like, if you go into a PC gaming space and you want to be involved in a flame war, you kind of better know something, right, when you go into the space, or you're going to very quickly be debunked and unraveled. But when we try and debunk and unravel stuff in the console gaming space, people, I don't know, just ignore it or claim some other craziness in defense. Like this thing, BRAP, I think you and I were participating in today, or at least like kicked it back and forth about Sony versus Microsoft, right? And I'm like, Microsoft, and whether or not there's a valid discussion to even be had about like the business competition between the two. And I'm like, people talk about Xbox versus PlayStation. Those are two divisions in two very large corporations. But Sony Corporation is what, 153 million or billion. Microsoft is a 2.43 trillion dollar company. Microsoft is a software company. Sony is an electronics company. There's stark differences, right? And there's really a point where after the first couple of seconds, there's really not really an argument or a discussion to be had about them being in competition with each other. But again, in the console war, people just blow by that and immediately go back to, forging about their brands in the mud.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, no, it's interesting. I wasn't planning on discussing this, but I think it's interesting. I think one, it's a great conversation to have. But two, it's the thing that's intriguing to me is that there are the arguments that are being had are over the same things. If you kind of peel the onion back a little bit, right? They're arguing over the same thing that they both love, and that's gaming, right? That's the part that's funny to me.
I guess that one could argue maybe that shows the passion that they all have for gaming, but to me, I'm not going to mention the topic of there was a space. I mean, there's always a spaces, right? But I just saw what was going on as the same people arguing about a different topic, right? And they were arguing about whatever they were arguing about today. They were arguing about something different yesterday, and they will be arguing about something different tomorrow, right? I think people just, I don't know. I think people just want to argue. That's it.
Right? And I see this like this thing of like this one has to fail, and in reality, like this isn't like a zero-sum game. Like all three of these companies can be successful because the industry's so big now.
Listen, and here's the other thing, right? This idea of one needs to win. Okay, let me put it to you this way. Company A makes 26 billion in revenue and 10 billion in profit, right? Company B makes 16 billion in revenue and 5 billion in profit. I bet you both of those shareholders for both of those companies are happy because one made 10 billion in profit, the other one made 5 billion, right? It's not about like, why do you, BRAP or Game Logic or everyone listening in here, why do we give a flying 747 fuck about what the revenue is of these companies or what business models they have, right? Like for me, it like one company can make all the money in the world, and the other company, as long as it is healthy, I know that the ecosystem and platform will continue, which means they will continue to release the games that I like from that ecosystem. And that is the end of it, right? We do all of this like everybody's like econ major, right? Like everybody's a Wall Street guy, a project manager in here. And I just wonder how much of that actually has to do with gaming, or how much people actually care about whose business model is working and not working.
Yeah.
I mean, let me leave that alone.
No, go ahead, Game Logic. Don't hold back.
I don't want to throw shade because there are some good people trying to do good things. I mean, so there are some bad actors in the space who do the things that they do because they want the followership, right? Maybe because they're trying to monetize and whatever. And the reason I started to walk that back and said I don't want to throw shade at everyone who's doing that, because not everyone is doing that for those reasons. But
not mad at anyone who is actually provided you are not like personally attacking people. I am not mad at anyone that makes a living off of building narratives off of these billion and trillion dollar companies. You made a living bashing Apple, right? If that was your whole YouTube career and you were able to make a living out of that, I'm not mad at you, and Apple's not hurting because of that, right? So what I'm saying is, if someone's actually profiting off that, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I say, go ahead, make your money, no sweat off my balls. What boggles my mind are the people that are doing it for free. Right? Like it's crazy to me. I call it unpaid marketing interns. Right? But if you have a channel and you've amassed tens of thousands of subs and you're getting in super chats and you're getting in there lying all day, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I'm not mad at anyone and any woman or guy who does OnlyFans. So I'm not mad at anybody who comes on YouTube and lies all day.
Yeah.
Everybody got to eat. Sure.
Yeah. Real quick. Game Logic. It's funny. There was a discussion about Betamax and VHS, and I forgot, and you brought this up, that the adult entertainment industry had a big
that is the decider of everything.
That's the decider of everything. That's like if the adult entertainment industry adapts to like it happened with Blu-ray, the internet to an extent, then it's then it's good.
Game over.
It's game over.
If Xbox wants to win, they just got to do porn games.
Yeah, I mean, let's tunnel back through the history just a little bit. Hopefully, while have been sitting here ranting about how uninformed some gamers are, a lot of gamers, or most gamers, but hopefully, gamers maybe know, at least some of them know, about the history of E3, right? That E3 came out of what used to be done as a part of CES. CES has historically occurred when and where it has historically occurred, because the adult entertainment industry concurrently had their industry show, and that was actually the big deal. The electronics part of the show was not a very big deal, right? It's that the adult entertainment industry was there, and the parts of the electronics industry that also needed to work with the adult entertainment industry concurrently, started going there, and out of that bloomed CES, which out of that bloomed E3. But yeah, I mean, those wars that have gone on in the past, Blu-ray versus HD DVD, beta versus VHS, it's been about like porn were the people who really started to uptake VR, right? And that's arguably there's more money in porn VR when you see maybe some of the POV stuff that you kind of see in 3D cameras, 360-degree cameras, things like that. There's arguably more money going in there than you see in normal commercial consumerism for things like gaming.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know that about the porn thing in VR. I know it's there, but I didn't realize how big maybe that was compared to like you said, like gaming and stuff like that. It's interesting. Yeah. Real quick, Jim, I do want to switch gears. I do want to say something. So on a more serious note, our brother Optimus Code is having some health issues, and if you go to my YouTube page, you'll see the link for the GoFundMe. We asked that, hey, obviously, if you can, contribute, any contribution is welcome and appreciated, and any super chat that's made tonight, we're going to donate that to the GoFundMe for Optimus Code. So just want to mention that as well. So I do want to transition here to Halo because there was an update. Now I've played a lot of the multiplayer. I think the multiplayer, and I've said this a million times, I think the multiplayer plays great. I think there's some pretty good weapon balance for the most part. Not so much in Fiesta, but I think that's always been the case in Fiesta anyway. One of the complaints has been, the Battle Pass, the XP system that's in place, and they actually, Microsoft has actually, and John, I can never pronounce his last name, Jusnek. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyhow, he's a community manager at 343i. And he's been really engaged on Twitter with giving updates in terms of what they're listening to the player feedback on the XP system and Battle Pass, things like that, and they have upgraded or have tweaked how much XP players can earn now in a match. And one of the issues is like if you could with the XPs, if you went out and had just a crazy game, you just went ham, you went 40-0. Like Evermore does on a regular basis on Halo.
Definitely not true.
Yeah, I know. I say that because you got owned by bots on Halo.
Absolutely, they call me the bot master.
Yes, not for the reasons people think. So, they've tweaked some of the XP system here, and it's so the first game 300 XP, second game 200 XP, third game 200 XP, fourth game 100 XP. Actually, 4 through 6 game 100 XP. Then seventh game, seventh plus game you get 50 XP. So that's an improvement compared to what they had before. I think before, even if you went ham in a game, you'd get 50 points, and somebody went 0-20 would probably get the same points as you. So that's clearly
I think it's a good move, but it feels like a stopgap.
I was going to say that too. That's a great point. So, everyone, why don't you elaborate on that? Why do you think it's a stopgap?
So, I think, so it is good by itself, or it's better by itself, but I think that doesn't address the main issue people are having. I think because you have these sort of mission-based progression or these tasks that they have you do, people get into matches and they do not play towards the objective of the specific match because that is not rewarded, right? So you just go there, win, lose, or draw, capture the flag or not, right? Work towards winning the match or not. You're going to be awarded the same amount, right? And so because people aren't really focused on the objective, they're kind of selfishly focusing on whatever progression mission they're working on. It is ruining the experience for other people who are there to play whatever the match is. And so what I think seems like a simple enough fix is to reward people for the objective of the match. So if right, and if you do that, I think you can still have those other sort of those little mission things that they have where you have to use a certain gun or they're trying to force you to play a certain way. I feel like those, and I'm gonna take heat for this, I feel like those kind of tasks should be relegated to bot matches, right? And you can make that a part of your training, but if you excel, right? If you get a triple kill or you carry your team all the way to victory, you should be rewarded for that. You should be rewarded for playing the matches as they were designed to being played and excel at that. And then if they want to get you to experience other weapons or do certain things, leave that to the bot matches so you don't have to mess up other people's games.
So let me ask, because I haven't tracked it as closely because I maybe don't pay as close attention to that stuff when I'm in a match. But for the amount of time that you hold the oddball or for making a flag capture, are you not being rewarded with points for that?
No.
Okay.
Same amount of points, no matter what.
Yeah, and I do think you were getting if you had challenges where those activities were tied to that challenge, and yeah, you would get credit for that. But I think that's the issue was that people were, and I eventually I just became disengaged with doing the challenges because what I found out was that I wasn't playing the objectives as much as I was playing the challenge. And that just makes a very disconnected experience, or it actually could have a negative impact towards the rest of the team, right? And I saw people doing that, like they would try to camp a certain weapon or something, or they didn't want to do something because they were trying to, get an objective or something. And to me, that takes away from the engagement of the game. Make it very simple. I know what I mean, I get what they're trying to do.
This is what I'm saying. Make the objectives a part of training. Do it against Spartan bots. That way you're not messing up someone else's game. Right? Go ahead and be selfish. That's fine.
I think the only challenge with that though, Everborn, is that then I think it's a balance between that, making it accessible, but also keeping engagement up, right? I think if you make it too easy, then you run the risk of maybe losing some player engagement, because now people are like, okay, I did what I had to do. And I used to do that on Destiny, do my challenges for the week. I'm done. I'm not playing, right?
It's a weird dynamic. And it's super interesting, because I haven't been a big, Halo player up until this point. I probably played more Halo Infinite multiplayer than I played any Halo multiplayer, but like, you have the same problem in Call of Duty, at least Black Ops Cold War, right? Because everything about people's stats is all ground predominantly on KD and ED. And so in Call of Duty, when you go into objective-based matches, you frequently get matches where I've been in matches where like no one tries to capture a domination point. Like literally,
no, it's all KD.
Right, exactly. And so you learn that about the culture, and I started modulating like my quick play list, right? I don't play a lot of objective based unless I'm playing a specific map, right? Because there are maps that I really like. It seems it's very interesting, and so you have that problem in Call of Duty. I don't think I've sensed like a big outcry over that. Now, granted, the way rewards work is different. It sounds like there's a lopside in Halo, because in Call of Duty, you do get points for time on a domination point and for others of the objectives, and then the other stuff is ancillary. That stuff doesn't contribute to your stats, which I think is a bigger thing in Call of Duty, which I wish there was more focus on stats, and more in the presentation layer about stats in Halo Infinite multiplayer right now. But in the Halo community, and I'm asking you guys because you guys have been long time players, there's much more of an outcry of this thing, which is disincentivizing people from the teamwork aspect. Whereas, like I said, in Call of Duty, there's no outcry about people not working together as a team, which is my big problem. Sometimes playing that game. But is there more of a focus and a desire and a cultural uptake, so to speak, on the desire to keep teams tightly tethered together, particularly in like those small scale 4v4 matches?
How much I can speak to that aspect, though, I will say that there are some differences with Halo and COD and Destiny, because it's I guess the interesting thing here to me in terms of the upheaval and outcry is that in other games, increasing your stats will allow you to do things like get better weapons and a lot of other things. But in Halo, the game is going to play the same no matter what. So this is all about, like, the only purpose of progression, unless you're playing like ranked matches because you want to end up playing against better people, the only real purpose of progression is cosmetics, right? Do I have that right, BRAP? Like, what you do not. It doesn't change the playing of the game, like, at all.
Well, and add on top of that, specifically in Halo, because it's another weirdism that I've been wanting to ask you guys about, there's no weapon unlocks. Right, so in Call of Duty,
you can't even get special weapons. You can get like lockets for your weapon, but you're all using the same stuff.
Right. So one of those differences in COD is, as you're playing, it's not wrapped in, I don't think it's tied into the battle pass. It's just about combat performance, right? There are weapon unlocks and things that do change your capabilities in map.
Yeah, no, but I want to go back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Game logic, it sounded like you cut out mid-sentence, but...
Did we lose him?
I'm here. I was reaching for my mute button, and it may have caught me mid-sentence. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you were saying that, with or I think it was Everboard. So you guys were saying that with Halo, there's no like weapon upgrades. Like there's not that ability to gain new weapons, unlock new weapons that you can use, customize, and then unlock specific feature sets for those weapons. Like you have that in COD, you don't have that here in Halo, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So this is not to say that they don't need to fix a problem, fix like these issues, right? Because you can't piss people off in a game that is designed to keep them playing. Although I hear Destiny does that that's Destiny's whole business model. But I how much, and I know here on Twitter we're like upset about it. Is the general audience going to be as upset about it? I mean, not like it's not fully out now, but after the December 8th when it's officially out. Because I don't know that they're going to make any massive changes before the release, because it seems like, at least what they're saying is they're looking at data to see how this changes the way people play the game, and then they will adjust based on that. And I think Frontline Gamer had an interesting point, or made an interesting point the other day, which is really the reason for this early release. This is basically a negotiation phase where they can, and it should be a contentious relationship, because they are trying to see how much they can tweak the progression in order, just enough to keep you playing. So they don't want to give you too much so that you get everything you need and then you won't come back until the next battle pass. Or they don't want to give you so little that you get annoyed and you drop the game for something else. So they're literally trying to figure out what will keep us engaged. And I think it's important that people kind of voice those opinions about this, because they are listening, as you can see. So I don't think it's helpful when a lot of people say, shut up, it's just a free to play, or shut up, it's just cosmetics. And to an extent, I do kind of agree with that. But like, in the grand scheme of things, voice your opinions through these channels, because as you can see with the 2 changes they've made already, they're listening and making updates in real time.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. This is going to be interesting. Like as you guys are talking about, some of the differences between COD and Halo, and the free to play stuff, like Warzone. I play a lot of Warzone, and the one thing that I liked about Warzone is that you got rewarded for playing matches, winning matches, whatever the case was, right? You got XP. It never felt like a chore. I never felt like I was disengaged from from the game, or from just playing with the team. And I also felt like I was always unlocking things, right? And I guess my question is, with no weapon unlocks, like I mean, and I've never thought about that. Like the armor upgrades are not good, in my opinion. Like they look bad. Like
it's literally spray paint.
No, they
right?
look ashy.
Like,
it looks like your Spartan was. It looks like your Spartan. It has like if there was like a Halo tight armor for Charlie Brown, yeah, it would be the Pigpen armor set, because that's what
I'm not even gonna lie to you right now, right? Like I don't like right now my Spartan is like the American red, white, and blue Spartan, but I hate the way it looks. I'm about to spend that $9 on that black and blue Spartan armor.
Why? Because it looks good.
Yeah, but that's it. I don't. Yeah, that's like, I'm telling you right now, all this battle pass stuff, I don't give a shit about. I don't care about any of it, because if I play multiplayer, it's a quick in and out 1-2 matches, gotta go.
Yeah, I guess
I'm not going to be, and this is nothing against anyone who plays it all the time. I think that's great. I'm saying that's not me. I genuinely don't care about this. I'm not saying that it's not an issue. I'm saying I don't care, because I, not really since my LAN party days, have not really been a Halo multiplayer person. I'm a Halo campaign person.
Me too.
And that is my thing that I'm looking forward to, where I will probably have, you'll hear the most complaints from me if it's not good than this multiplayer stuff. But I say all that to say, I'm going to spend my $9 on that black and blue armor set. And that is probably the last money they're going to get from me, unless there's more story content to buy. Right?
Yeah,
I don't care about progressing through this battle pass at all, because it's not giving me anything. It's not giving me new weapons. And that, I think that was the beauty or the draw for me. I'm not a COD guy, but I got like, I don't know how many hundreds of hours in Destiny.
Yeah.
But it was the thing, like, I'm getting armor that will upgrade my stats, and I'm getting new weapons that will help me along. None of that is there. So I'm literally, regardless of the progression, I'm only playing Halo for fun.
So go ahead.
It's a tough development problem, right? And I appreciate that as I'm watching it, right? Because I think the first thing to land on is that the Halo implementation is trying to do something and is something that is inherently different. Although I've drawn these comparisons, right? It is inherently different from the progression that's layered on top of the gameplay in Destiny 2, as well as COD, right? Destiny 2 is a looter shooter, right? It is specifically built heavily on top of the idea of always getting new stuff. COD has weapon unlocks, like we've talked about. Halo doesn't have that. And in such, it is kind of calling back to some aspects of first-person shooters that people have missed when you go back to things like an Unreal Tournament or a Quake.
I was just about to say,
there's arguments. I think it's balanced properly now, but there's arguments when you look at COD that there's an imbalance that occurs when somebody unlocks the Tech 9, right? That gives them an advantage over other people in the match. And then that's hard. That creates competitive difficulty when, you're up against a person who puts in, 100 hours a week, versus a person who has an adult life and can only put in, 20 hours a week. And I know that's a whole argument too. But my point is that the architectural and design ethoses are therefore definitively different. One of the things that in Halo, in terms of this battle pass and the progression problem, is there are only so many things that can even be progressed, right, that are even on the table for discussion. From an armor aspect, the other thing that I've been considering is, you have the kind of classic armor sets, right? Halo, ODST, Reach. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that they did this Tenrai thing that has like the kind of the Shogun design kind of to the armor pieces, which now you're kind of skewing things off into kind of a Warframe direction with Tenos. But I really don't even know how much elasticity there is for that in the Halo community uptake, because when I'm playing Halo, I think I kind of want to look like the classic armor sets, right? I don't know that I want too much craziness from an art and design perspective. And so there's a limit. I feel like there's a horizon where, the faster you approach that horizon, the more and more difficult it's going to be a problem for 343 and for Microsoft. So I feel like part of this is kind of, as you guys mentioned, right? It's let's figure out just where we can tune the progression pace to, because that's going to drive, and everybody, you're a developer, so that's going to drive staffing, right? How many people do you have to put on the problem to build the assets, right, and iterate upon those designs to feed into that battle pass? And the faster, again, you approach that event horizon, the more of a problem that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, and one thing you pointed out that I definitely agree with. Like, I had zero interest in that Shogun armor, right? Like this, I want my Spartan to have the Spartan armor, right? Like we can play around with the colors, but I think what is going to come into play, and I do like the idea that you go to this thing for fun, because that is why I fell out of love with Destiny, because I felt like I was clocking out of work and then clocking into Destiny, right? It was like 9 to 5 and then 10 to 6, right? Just and I like the idea of finding a way to have people come to the game that is just for fun, and also not alienating the people who maybe don't have 100 hours, like you said, a week to dedicate to this thing, and people can come there and have fun. But I do think what Halo is going to live and die on as an ongoing service is going to be the Forge and that user created content, and if they add new game modes, because I think what's there now will satisfy people for and obviously you're going to have the hardcores like the Master Chief Collection guys that are still there. You're going to have those guys playing all the time, but in terms of being a kind of, and I don't know that it can get to a Warzone level, just because it is not like, yes, it's in the cloud, yes, it's on PC, yes, it's on Xbox, but it's not everywhere, right? So maybe it doesn't see those 80 million monthly players, but I could see this game doing Sea of Thieves numbers, right? 25 million a month active users, right? But I think they're gonna over time have to add new modes, and maybe there's a world where one day, and I'm not endorsing this because I don't care about Battle Royale, but maybe, in a future season after the Forge is out, after co-op is out, maybe and maybe if the uptick is going down or the MAUs are going down, maybe then you introduce, some of those new game modes like a Battle Royale. I personally want raids in Halo, but
I don't think it's going to happen in Halo.
Yeah,
I guess I guess the one thing, and I just kind of.
But picture a raid with a grappling hook. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think this kind of goes back to what Game Logic was saying, though. I think about the armor sets, and that you can't. There's no weapon upgrades, so it's just I guess what's. Like Game Logic, you're right. Like this game, the one thing that feels good about this game is it goes back to the days of those arena-based shooters like Quake and like Unreal Tournament, right? Like we haven't had those in quite some time, really. And even Halo 5 maybe deviated from that a little bit, right? But that's what feels good to me about this game. But I don't understand. I guess what I'm struggling with, and maybe I'm overthinking this, is how does that tie into that traditional arena base with a live service game, like what they're trying to do, which they've never done before. It's like, how do they do that? Because they're kind of stuck. Like, you can't. Are you going to introduce new weapons? Are you going to do new weapon upgrades? Are you going to, are you going to do armor sets that you can that upgrade your stats? Like, what are you going to do that makes people say, I need to invest. I need to invest in doing the challenges, or I need to pay, because right now I really think that for them it's all about microtransactions. It's about because those armor sets are terrible. Like even the samurai armor, I looked at it and it looked ashy. Like it didn't have that pop. It just it looked like Master Chief needed, like somebody needed to give that Titan some lotion. Like
you sound like Cog now.
No, I mean, look here. Cog and I, we joke around about it, like hashtag no Ashy Spartans, and because he saw my Spartan, I paid the $10 to get the Spartan, to get the one of the esports team Titan armor sets, because it popped, it looked great, and I'm like, I know that sounds crazy, and people are probably like, why would you spend $10? It drove me nuts. I'm that person. And I'm probably part of the problem when it comes to some microtransactions, especially cosmetic microtransactions. I do have an issue with that. I've spent quite a few on Call of Duty Warzone, but I guess that's my question to you both. Like, how do they do this?
So here's the thing, right? And this is a thing. If you've developed mobile apps, right, or you just watch people use them, right? There are people that will go and play a mobile game for hundreds and hundreds of hours because the device is always with you. They're playing Genshin Impact or Candy Crush or whatever it is. I don't know what mobile games are out right now, right? And they will do everything in their power not to spend money in that game. And I just think, if this is a game you're going to spend hundreds of hours in, and so you happen to buy some cosmetics, is it you know, is that really a bad thing, right? Like, I say that to say I don't think there's any problem with saying, hey, I want to spend $10 in this game that I spend a lot of time in because I want my armor to look better, right? There's nothing wrong with with any developer, I think, charging for items in a game that are not designed to give you a leg up. So once you're paying to win, once you're paying for better stats, I think then we get to a weird place. But like, if it's not affecting gameplay, I say have at it. Offer as much cosmetics as you want.
Everyone, yeah. Go ahead, give me.
And the other thing with the battle pass, I think that sometimes doesn't get into the conversation is the Halo battle pass. The unlockability of those items never goes away, right? So the standard battle pass is not like the COD battle pass, where once the season's over, you're done. Those things can never be unlocked again. They remain persistent unlockables if you don't complete them.
Right, and then they're not selling you like randomized loot boxes. I hope they're not. Those are the things I have a problem with. But like,
I like the random loot boxes. Look, I'm telling you, I'm part of the problem. Like,
well, in that case, yes.
So I'm speaking. So when I ask these questions, I'm speaking from somebody who engages in like Warzone and in games where there's been, that you get like a loot box, right? And it's kind of a roll of the dice. Like, I've done that. But to me, that's kind of engagement. Like, it keeps me engaged in the game. But the armor pieces, I'm gonna, it's really my sticking point. For some people, it's not a big deal, and I get that. Like, they're like, whatever. I don't care if my Halo, armor set looks ashy. But like for example, the Yuri armor, right, which was just part of the last event, right? And they said it was going to be free. They told us that, and the base Yuri armor is free. But if you want that Joker to be nice looking, right? If you want those nice coatings and everything like that to make it look nice, you got to pay for that, right? There's also, I don't know if you guys saw this, a Reddit leak where the leak is hold on a second, let me pull this back up. The leak is basically saying the Halo Infinite will have 88 different store bundles in the first season, and the person who leaked this basically totaled up the cost of all 88 bundles to roughly cost about $1,000 in season 1 to buy all these items. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I know people have jumped on that, and I just I don't know how big a deal that is, just because and again I agree with you guys. I'm not trying to say people shouldn't express their discontent, right, with this, right? But I'm also trying to assess how big of a deal is this, because when we go back to COD, tons of unlocks scattered around all over the place throughout the battle pass. I know for a fact I have skins that I never equip. You have 10 different loadouts. You have 6 different primary weapon categories, or 6, 7, or 8 primaries, 6 secondaries. I have stuff that I never use, right? Because I'm focused on, and because I'm worried about the game, the gameplay, and my stats. And I'm at a certain point, I'm just trying to feel out when is this just noise, and it doesn't. I don't know that it really matters. And yes, I like to equip a cool skin, but I don't know that I feel compelled to equip every single cool skin that I have. The other question I wanted to ask is, I can't remember which Forza Horizon it was. I think it was 3. But one of the Forza Horizons that came out had a big microtransaction VIP pass controversy, right? Because there was a thing, I think when it first came out, you would get access to the cars through the VIP pass, but you would still then have to use, that just allowed you to purchase them, and then you still had to go and earn in-game currency to then actually buy them to put you in your car collection. Microsoft reversed track on that and walked that back, and eventually went to, if you access them via the VIP pass, you could just go in and you still had to hit the mechanically hit the button to add them to your collection, but you didn't have to pay in-game currency for them. What is the chance that you guys think of them just eventually just walking the notion of the battle pass back? Given that we've just had a discussion where we've said we don't really know how much of a difference it really makes.
I think that would come down for the reason you just mentioned. Like it doesn't make an impact per se. Like, and I think it would be more of an impact if it was a situation where you could get like unlock or get new weapons or whatever the case is. But then I guess that would present another challenge in terms of like maybe breaking how balanced the game is. But I think maybe that would come down to, are people buying the battle passes, right? Is it make sense, right? Or people, I think that's money. I think money, like, are they making money off that? Are people buying these things? I think that, and if that didn't work, maybe, I don't necessarily think they totally walk it back as much as maybe they just keep tweaking it as they go along, which I think is what they're going to do. I think I'd be interested, I think, to see how many people are actually buying things in store versus those that are not, and I don't think we'll ever know that. But I'm willing to bet that if this thing isn't, if they're not selling things the way they want to, that they're just going to tweak this thing, so I think it's just hard for me, it's hard to say, without knowing, how well the battle pass is doing now, or some of these, microtransactions are doing now, because we don't know. There's probably some people like me who are going to spend the $10, or some people are going to spend the money to, level up to like level 25, that don't want to do the grind,
But again,
how many of those people are out there? I don't know.
I'm one of those people, because I've said it on other shows before. I don't have fuck you money, but I don't have time for this shit money. Right? Like,
you know what? Everborn, I'm with you. I'm one of those people too, man.
And that is the thing. As long as we are not saying you get to a point in the game and you cannot progress unless you spend this extra money, or everyone that spent that money has a game other than not looking ashy.
Real quick, Everborn, to your point about spending money though to progress, I think you also have to make it like not feel like that you feel forced to do that because you're not progressing at a pace that seems reasonable, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's also the thing that came out today. Like, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, each month you'll get something like double XP. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yeah. Aaron Greenberg put that out.
How do you guys?
Membership has its rewards.
Well, I think BRAP and I talked about it, or at least we saw each other passing by the night with likes. But the thing that I mentioned is, so for me, being a Game Pass subscriber, I feel fine about it. But I am
subscribed to Game Pass until October of 2024.
Right. But I can definitely see where if you're not subscribed to Game Pass, that might come across as a dick move. Because it sounds like, and I think the specific comment I made is, it sounds like classic 1990s era Microsoft. It sounds like a strong arm move to try and tell people to really enjoy Halo, you really need to subscribe to the Battle Pass. And from a messaging and a marketing standpoint, I may have waited and pumped the brakes on rolling that out until after I had done the progression system redesign, so that people didn't feel that I was trying to bend them over the table, right, to force them to subscribe to Game Pass.
So I get that. And BRAP, if you want to go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with Game Logic saying, I agree with that. I think from the optics, it's better to say, let's push that out, that announcement, until we figure out the things that people are I don't want to use the word complaining, but, are voicing their concern about or displeasure. But I also understand that, hey, this is their baby. This is the game that got them to the dance, and they got to capitalize on that, and
give it away.
And so it's like they got to push Game Pass subscriptions too.
Yeah,
so I get that too, but I don't agree with the timing of it. But
and just let me add before you go, Everboard, just to feed this in case you want to comment on it. One thing I will always give Microsoft, and I think people like blow through this when they make their comments too, Microsoft is really great about telemetry and observability. I'm absolutely certain that they know from a data analytics perspective the number of Game Pass subscribers that are actively engaged playing Halo Infinite versus the number of non-subscribers. And they may have made the tactical decision that, hey, we need to keep our Game Pass subscribers engaged because they are the bulk of the people putting in time on Halo Infinite, and that's may have been why they rolled that out.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. That's
another thing. Yeah. Like you got to incentivize people to stay on Game Pass and make them feel like this is another perk that you're getting. But the point I was wanted to make about that was I don't know that I agree about the timing being bad. Like if they had said this last week, I think that may have been a problem. But like right now, this stopgap issue that the first match is was the first match 300 points, and then 200, 200, 100, 100. Is that
and then 50 right. When you get to like
level 7 plus. Or seventh match. Yeah. So the point is, people are going to progress through the battle pass with that change. It doesn't solve the main issue that people are not focusing on the objective of the match, but neither does this Game Pass thing. So I do think they've temporarily put a Band-Aid on the issue with people feeling like they're not progressing, and because they've done that. The Game Pass thing is just icing on the cake to say that, okay, you can progress it a little more. If they did that when you were still getting only 50 XP per match, then I think maybe the blow would have been less soft, so to speak. So, I thought, I was like, it's a cool. Here's the thing. When I first heard it, like as a Game Pass subscriber, I was like, great. But then my second thought was, people are going to complain about this. Right? You ever hear some news and it's like, it doesn't bother you, but there's a shitstorm coming?
Can you repeat that again, everyone? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you bad.
No. Like you hear some news and it doesn't bother you specifically, but people are going to be upset, so there's a shitstorm coming. And not that this is on the level of co-op not being included, which I do think is a miss. But I literally right now don't give a shit about co-op because I'm never going to play Halo co-op. I haven't played Halo co-op since CE. That said, I it wasn't going to affect me, but I knew it was going to be a whole shit show. And this is, again, not on that level, but when I saw this, I was like, oh, good for me. This is going to be what the new talking point is going to be for the naysayers until they get a new one the following week. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, the campaign is releasing a week from today. We still don't know a whole lot. Did
you see that trailer?
I told you I wasn't. That just didn't do anything
Lies. For me. I don't believe you, sir.
It didn't.
You can't hear that music and not get the feels in your chest.
I have seen something similar for the last 20 years from that franchise, and I just need to get my hands on the game. Like at this point, like a trailer like that just doesn't get me amped. It just doesn't.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'll tell you what
I know you say. Go ahead, man.
I think secretly, I think you are a Halo stan, just like me and OBM. But I think the issue with Halo, I think even an amazing campaign isn't going to solve it for you, because I think you may have outgrown the franchise. Right? And it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that like you have nefarious intentions, but I'm saying it doesn't matter what they do. This franchise just it's never going to give you the feeling you had as a 20-year-old man again, right? A 20-year-old young man again, right? You've become old and jaded just like me, right? And that sense of wonder is gone from you. Maybe you'll get it, but it'll come from something else. Halo will never do it for you, even if the campaign is a 10 out of 10.
That could very well be true. I think, and it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about that today. When you sent me that trailer, and I'm like, everyone else is like super hyped, and then, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I guess because I've played so much other content now, and I've played games that really have compelling stories, even more compelling, powerful stories than Halo. And like I'm playing and I know it's a different genre. I'm playing, I went back and started playing Sekiro again, and I beat Sekiro on PC. And because it was 60 FPS at the time on PC, and that was really the only way to play that game. I mean, not 30 FPS on console, hell no.
And that's the thing. Halo lore is very complex and intriguing, but the plots of Halo games are very straightforward. There's really not like, okay, you got to shoot the aliens, save the galaxy. Great. There's not a lot there but that doesn't take from all the lore that is in the Halo universe.
Yeah. But that's what I would like to see, though. That's what I would like to see, that more complex lore, as opposed to, let's save the world again. Like that's great. That worked 20 years ago, but I'd like to see a little more depth. Maybe that happens with this Halo.
I think the storytelling leans very heavily on people's emotional attachment to Chief, right? And if you don't have that emotional attachment, and this is nothing to do with saying, oh, it's an excuse or a crutch or whatever. A lot of the entire MCU is designed around your emotional attachment to the character.
Oh yeah, I get that. Spider-Man,
right? So,
yeah,
right.
Thor.
So this Halo specifically seems as though it is leaning on that. And if you don't have that affinity, I don't think the story that they are going to tell is going to hit with you or feel as complex to you. It's not going to hit you in the feels if you weren't already if you are looking for something more complex.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Game Logic,
Galaxy's going to be in danger again.
Yes.
Chief's going to have to stop a ring from going off.
Cortana. We're not going to hear that. Game Logic, what are your thoughts about the campaign?
The campaign will be whatever the campaign is. I agree with Everborn. It's it'll be a straightforward story. I think I mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast. I'm fine if it's the standard 6.5 to 8.5 hour single
I think it's going to be bigger than that. They called it the largest Halo campaign.
Yeah, and that would be fine too. By the same token, at the upper end of that threshold, like I don't want the game to outstay its welcome, and you could argue, at least for me, Halo 2 got to kind of a point where it was maybe hanging around a little bit longer than I wanted it to. What's really interesting for me is just kind of what the long-term tail on it is, right? And I hate to be basic or derivative, but like I look forward to, an open world, on Zeta Halo, continuing campaign stories, adventures, patrols that are, I hate to say it, but kind of in the Destiny 2 mold where, there's activities and patrols and stuff for me to go on every night. But again, the problem becomes, what the hell are you going to level up? Now in a single player space, they could have that type of progression system, and that's one of the things that will be interesting when we see the campaign drop next week. Is what I've talked about on the progression system is the things that are out now are the types of incremental changes that I would exactly expect from a software perspective, right? Those XP bumps are the types of things that would be in a config file or an enum or in a lookup table that you could make just by editing those values without worrying about it disrupting, right, anything that microservice or that module of code is adjacent to, and causing a ripple effect that you didn't anticipate, right? Whereas the progression system redesign, potentially re-architecture that will need to happen, is a thing that I would kind of pump the brakes on and do more due diligence about before I just let people tear the cover off that code. If that is wired into whatever progression system there is in the single player thing, again, that would be a reason to give it a little more time and consideration. But whether it's wired or completely decoupled or not, I doubt that it's completely decoupled. That's the thing that I'm interested to see is, what is that long-term tail after the single-player campaign on the Zeta Halo open worldish kind of thing, and what is the progression system that's tied into that?
let me ask you guys a question. In terms of, because I do agree that cosmetics are only going to take them so far. Is there a world where the unlocks could be around the equipment, not necessarily the weapons, but maybe you can upgrade your grapple hook for multiplayer in the same way you do it in the campaign, or your repulsor, or your drop shield or overshield, or thrusters? Is that a thing? Could you build the stats in that in multiplayer through progressing through future battle passes? Or maybe they add new equipment and you can kind of unlock that to use as a loadout in the multiplayer? Or would that break the game? I don't know.
I feel like that would be. I mean, it could be done from a technical aspect. I just in a gameplay balancing aspect, I just don't know which way that would tip some of those dynamics and exactly how they would balance it, right? Because then again, you have the classic age-old problem where you have people dumping tons of. I mean, I don't even like this in Forza Horizon, right? I hate how in Forza Horizon, right, to be competitive in a multiplayer race, you have to dump, 40 hours into the game to unlock specific cars that are the GOAT cars, right, that everybody goes for. And if you don't go into a race with one of those cars, it's not competitive at all. So you just have the thing where, you're going to have to dump time into the, and I say single player, but again, I would hope that it's, that's a good question. So I know we're not getting co-op in the campaign. Have they ever specifically said you're not getting co-op in this open world kind of thing that takes place after the single player campaign? Because
that would be where the raids that I want come in.
Yeah, because I struggle to understand why that would be even remotely interesting without the ability to go into that with a fire team.
I mean, I would really love the idea that after your campaign is complete, now your Spartan from multiplayer can enter the ring of the campaign and kind of you and your you and your friends can kind of go explore the Halo ring from the campaign.
Yep.
And if Chief blew up a building, that building in the story, that building is blown up for everybody because it would have happened already. So like maybe by the end of the game, Chief finds the Spartans that are alive. They're the new recruits, and those new recruits are none other than the people from multiplayer. Right, since all the old Spartans are dead, and now all those Chief by the end calls all the Spartans to the ring, and those Spartans are us, right? And we can play through that, do raids, take down high value targets, all that.
Or at least that there's some semblance of that persistence in your instance or multiple instances are in shards of the Zeta Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it's funny you mentioned like what this thing's gonna look like down the road. I think I kind of agree with you guys. Like or you game logic. That is that's kind of my big question too. Like after it's all said and done, then what's next, right? Because
a lock campaign, in the same engine like that. Have that be a story update that they kind of maybe sell us later, right? Locke comes to the Halo ring, and there's something he has to do, and you can add episodic story content like that with other characters.
I always thought they should have done an origins, like a master, like an origin story of Master Chief.
Well, maybe that's the TV show.
Maybe that is the TV show. I don't think it is though, from what I saw, but I think that
I have no faith in that show. I feel like it's going to be terrible.
That would intrigue me. Like I would be very intrigued by an origin story. I mean, like of Master Chief and how the Spartans were created. I mean, there's some interesting things they could touch on there, right?
Halsey kidnapped him as a kid.
Yeah,
and they did experiments on him.
Yeah, they experiment. So think about that. And his fire team. I forget the name. I forget the name of his fire team that he was part of.
Blue Team.
Blue Team. Thank you. But see, that's what I'm saying. Like there's that and we got maybe to explore that a little bit in 5, but there's that bond that from childhood, and he was stolen and he was experimented on, and There's all these
and
things
a lot
they
of
can
the
get
people
into.
that were stolen, they're dead. So like at those times, the Spartan program wasn't streamlined. So
But that's
like
what I'm
Team
saying. Like,
Osiris, like they can just put their armor on, take it off like that. It wasn't always like that with them, and that's why you see all of these like if in that like 3 second clip they showed at the show, you could see all of the scars on his back from when they were like augmenting them.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't that make a great origin story, like a great game, as opposed to the let's go save the world again, right?
But see, yes and no. I think I'm super excited for Halo Infinite, and I think for what it is, you need that. But I think the lore. This is why I say the story of typical Halo campaigns are pretty straightforward, but the lore itself is complex. And I think the lore allows for other stories like that in the universe. And I've never understood why all we got was Halo Wars when there's so much more you could do in that universe.
I agree with you 110%, Everboard. See that
it doesn't mean don't do Halo Infinite.
No,
but there's
kill Master
so
Chief.
much more you could do.
Kill
no,
Master
absolutely
Chief.
not. No. Unless you're gonna say kill Kratos, you don't kill Master Chief. Although Kratos may not make it out of Ragnarok.
He might not make it. Boy, he might not make it this time. Look, I think that there's just a lot of, like you said, like when you brought up Halo Wars 2, and I'll never forget that cutscene with the Spartans. They get their asses handed to them, and you meet Atriox. Like that was like, whoa, right? That was like, okay,
right. But listen,
but that's what I want to see. I want to see like something.
But I don't think that should come at the expense of Halo Infinite. It should just come in addition to build out this world. If you pay attention to any of the ancillary lore, which who the hell is going to pay attention to that unless you're like a super hardcore for it, right? But, like if you pay attention to that, you could do a lot of this stuff. You can't tell me that this world is so vast. The lore goes back so many thousands of years. There's all this stuff going on, but we only have one genre game, and the offshoot that we did, we're not even continuing. So, yes, keep doing Master Chief stories like Halo Infinite, but also give us stuff in other genres.
Yeah, and they did like Reach was a
same goes for Gears.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing I like about Gears is I actually really liked Hivebusters.
Hivebusters was great, but it was still a Gears game.
But you know what though? But it didn't have Marcus Phoenix. Didn't have JD. It was its own thing. And the one thing I liked about it, and this is where I think maybe I might, if Halo Infinite can give me kind of the things you're talking about, Everborn, maybe it can get its, hooks back, into me, like where, the thing that I liked about Hivebusters was that it didn't overstay its welcome. It was like, because for me, like I played so much Gears now, right? That like going back and playing a full Gears again would have been like overkill for me. This was nice. It was like a nice appetizer that didn't overstay its welcome. That made me think, you know what? I want to see what they come back with next. This is, nice.
I'm glad they're taking a break to do another project that's basically going to serve as like a learning process for UE5 or whatever, and then they give Gears a little bit of a breather, and then they come back. And I think that like slowly, but see, Coalition's great. I think that they like there was Gears Judgment that people didn't like, but that was like in the 360 days, I think.
Yeah, that was people.
I think they have been great stewards of the Gears IP, but I think it could still be expanded, and there could be. I'd love to see a more agile Gears, because I kind of get tired of the clunking around, right? This is why, for a time, I appreciated Outriders for a little bit, because it kind of had that.
I said Outriders
did pop.
I said Outriders did Gears better than Gears.
That was a stretch, but
from a movement perspective, absolutely.
Well, no, but what I want from Gears is different classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could pick the big burly, Marcus Phoenix kind of dude that kind of lumbers around, but I also want someone like Kate shouldn't lumber around the way that Marcus does, right? She should be able to move around, do other
be a little
things.
more nimble.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Throw some parkour in there. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And you have two different play styles, so you still accommodate the other guys, but you can effectively change the game up for people who want something fresh. Because at the end of the day, I know they started to add some of these hub world stuffs in Gears 5, but really, it is not. I don't think the change in Gears 5 is as big as the changes that Halo Infinite has with the way the grapple hook and open world and all those stuff are. So I'd love to see that, and I think we're going to get that in. And I don't know how we started talking about Gears, but the point is we need more genres of games in the Halo universe, and I think we would all be
I would
the
be
better for it.
Yeah, I want to switch gears here real quick, gentlemen. So you guys saw so there's some new information regarding oh my god, now I forgot the name. BioShock. I'm sorry. I've completely forgot the name of the game.
We're gonna see it at Game Awards, right?
BioShock Isolation. Now, okay. Game Awards could be exclusive PS5.
Hey,
what do you guys think?
Cheaper than buying a whole publisher.
Well, I've heard that's kind of Sony's play this generation too. That they are really, and this has also been reported on, not the Sony propositioning third-party developers for exclusive content. That's been discussed a lot in the media. That's been talked about, but there are some rumblings out there that this game could in fact be exclusive to the PS5. The new BioShock is going to take may feature 2 cities, and I think they're calling it BioShock Isolation. So, what do you all think? I mean, like if this is well, first, are you excited for a new BioShock? And would you agree that this might be a pretty big get for PlayStation 5 if it's indeed exclusive to that platform?
I think it would be a huge get for PlayStation 5. I don't know how excited I am about it, but it would be huge. Huge. Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Game Logic?
I'm interested for more BioShock. I don't know. I mean, because I'm trying to remember the developer lineage on this, but was it Irrational Games that became Ghost Games that Levine opened up? So I mean, this isn't a Ghost Games game, so I'm not sure who would be developing this. I guess the thing that I mean, at best, I have to think that this would be a timed exclusive, because I just don't believe that there would be any way in the world that 2K would only sell this on PlayStation.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, I mean, and if it only goes to PlayStation, I mean, as far as how I feel about, like, I mean, my roots on BioShock go back to System Shock. I don't know that the Xbox consumer base would really be bothered that much by it, considering they're getting Starfield next year and all their Bethesda exclusives. So, I think it would just be a show.
We would be bothered.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, but I say that saying that Xbox, I thoroughly believe Xbox will eventually get this. I mean, the amount of money Sony would have to pay to 2K to get them to not release this on Xbox.
Yeah, because this is the other thing. To that point, I think this is a harder sell than Final Fantasy exclusivity, because Square could probably have data that says the bulk of our audience comes from PlayStation, but BioShock is like an Xbox kind of game. What I mean by that is the kind of games that people play on Xbox like BioShock falls in that category. So I do think, you know, they would lose out on a lot more sales than they lost out, or potential sales than potential sales they would have lost with PlayStation, with Final Fantasy coming to Xbox. So it would cost Sony a lot of money to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely would. Yeah. Maybe like cyber, maybe like Game Logic said, like something more timed, you know, and maybe not necessarily as long as Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I'm curious to see when that's going to make its way on the Xbox platform.
Let me ask you a question. Speaking of timed exclusives, this whole KOTOR thing, right? How do we know? How do we, like, what has I'm just looking at Aspire's history of remakes or porting things over, porting KOTOR specifically, like to Switch and mobile and all those things. How much of a remake do we think this is going to be?
I would imagine
like, how big of a deal?
It's probably a full on.
But do you think it's
why
gonna
do it then?
Have, I mean, why do the GTA trilogy re-release, right? But do you think it will rise to the level of a Final Fantasy VII remake, or will it be something less ambitious? Is what I'm asking.
I don't know. I would my gut would say it's more along the lines of Final Fantasy VII remake.
If that's the case, that I hope that is correct, because
I don't think Sony would have shown that the way they did if it wasn't going to be that. You know what I mean? I could be wrong. Maybe they would, but I don't know. I don't think. I think it's going to be a full on remake.
No, I don't think they called it a remake, right? But what I'm saying is,
wasn't that? Didn't they say it was going to be a full remake? I'd have to look this up again.
I think they did. I think they said they're rebuilding it for the ground up for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, with a totally new team.
Right, but again, there's levels to remaking something from the ground up, right? And I hope that it is to the level of Final Fantasy VII remake, because I think that's what we all want, and that's specifically what I want. And I don't care who it's exclusive to, right? Because I love the idea of reintroducing that to the world. So, so
the one maybe reason to be positive about it is that, you know, Aspire has been. I would contend that Aspire's track record hasn't been bad, but that they also haven't done necessarily anything amazing.
Of the scale.
Right, of aspirational intent. It's always, I don't really mean this in a bad way, but it's always just kind of been like a chop shop of like old IPs and things that have been handed over to them for, you know, for maintenance after the primary publisher is like no longer interested in really keeping it up. So this will be an aspirational project for them since their acquisition by Embracer. It's tough for me to have a good feel for where it's going to land, because it's a new team trying to do something that Aspire hasn't really done before on the PlayStation 5 console. It just seems like a lot of risk, right? Then to be deployed out in a field where still at the end of the day, it has the classic problems and trappings that any remake has, right? Which is that you have to maintain some percentage of the original design framework, or else fans, right, are going to get up in arms. But in order to modernize it and make it competitive, you know, you have to put something new in the mix. That's just a very fine line and tightrope to kind of walk when you're not a studio built with the chops of like the studios at Capcom that did the Resident Evil 2 remake, which, as good as it was and as good as it sold, didn't really get a ton of like critical acclaim afterwards. When you look at like the award shows and things afterwards, people were very positive about it, but nobody like, you know, clapped that team on the back in the long term.
Here's the thing, though, right? And this isn't what I'm asking isn't even really just about graphics, because what I don't want it to be a Demon Souls situation, right? Demon Souls, I think that remake is literally like, and you've played this a lot, BRAP. It's the same mechanics as the old game, and that's not a bad thing because they had a great base to work from, and you add like the power of the PS5 to it. Great, but will that work? Will the Demon Souls approach work for KOTOR? Because I feel like it has to be the Final Fantasy VII remake approach and not the Demon Souls approach.
Well, I think
for
Demon
KOTOR
Souls,
specifically.
Demon Souls works though because it's still a modern take per se, right? Like you still
exactly.
Yeah. Now I think there's probably some elements of KOTOR. I don't remember all of it because I played that game, 20 almost 20 years ago. But I would imagine that there would probably be some evolution of, maybe the dialogue choices or maybe some kind of revision to the combat. But I think I don't think they're going to who knows? I mean, I don't think they'll drastically change things. I mean, I see what you're saying about the Final Fantasy thing, but I think in KOTOR's defense, I mean, KOTOR also, from what I remember, seemed to incorporate things that we see in today's games, that turn-based, RPG, Western style RPG type game and dialogue choices, dialogue trees. I mean, before there was Mass Effect, there was like KOTOR with the different dialogue choices, from what I remember.
Right. It was the things that BioWare has modernized and perfected, and I'm going to isolate that conversation to BioWare as they approach their peak, not the downhill slide that they've been on since Andromeda and Anthem. But it's a design framework that has been improved upon, and that I think we're going to look at as a little antiquated. Having recently revisited kind of KOTOR and KOTOR 2, first of all, I feel like KOTOR 2 is the better game, which was done by Obsidian. And KOTOR, from a dialogue and narrative perspective, was pretty campy, particularly in its outset. And it got a little better toned as you progress further into the game, but it was definitely like kind of sillyish, right, in the front end content of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see what Aspire does. But like, if you were just forklifting, right, KOTOR and dropping it into 2023, I don't know that plays as well. So, and I don't know that I need a PlayStation 5, right, to play that. So I feel like to give it the gravitas that it needs to be on the PlayStation 5 platform, they got to do something that steps away from the original design framework.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. And Sony is involved in this. Like, I know that they're involved in this project. So, I tend to give Sony some leeway, right? I think they have a good track record for the most part. They're not always batting 1,000, but I mean, I think they do a pretty good job in terms of developing content, and I think they've done a great job with some of the remakes. When I think of Demon Souls, and even the other remake on PS4, which was Shadow of the Colossus, which I thought was well done. And if you haven't played Shadow of the Colossus,
I would feel better about this KOTOR thing if Bluepoint was doing it, but alas.
Yeah, I hear you.
But alas.
And let me give them a little dap, right? Because somebody mentioned Disney in the chat, right? So they have an established relationship with Disney, by which they were given latitude in what they implemented on Spider-Man and Miles Morales, right? To take that lore and to kind of craft it and mold it in a narrative direction that best befit their game, right? Without being tightly coupled to any of the movie stuff or whatever. And so going that route, they may get that latitude. Now, one of the things that I will admit that I don't know is, did this deal get done through Disney, or did it get done through the newly reestablished LucasArts, right, content overseeing arm that I don't know whether or not, I don't know that that's part of the Disney conglomerate or if it's part of Lucas.
Yeah, that's a great question, and they are working in conjunction with Aspire and Lucasfilm Games. Sony is
Okay.
So those three So I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know if Lucasfilm Games falls under, or if it's like Disney, or I don't know.
I don't know. But I mean, but
it does fall under. It all falls under Disney. And to the Disney has no problem. There's a ton of Disney mobile games and AA games, and they just did the KOTOR remake on the Switch. You can look at. I mean, don't do it now, but
it's a remaster.
Go YouTube it. Yes, right. And that was done by Aspire. And I'm just saying, I do not want that, but with PlayStation graphics.
I don't think we're going to get that, man.
I want the Final Fantasy VII remake treatment.
No,
and it's two different titles, right? The thing that just came out on Switch is a honest-to-goodness remaster, whereas this thing that's coming out, well, I don't know. Yeah, whereas this thing that's coming out is the rebuilt redo, right?
Yeah, I know. I just don't want those old mechanics either.
I agree. Right? Yeah, we shouldn't see those old mechanics. That's not going to
tell that story again in an entirely new game. Because someone in the chat said this: Final Fantasy VII OG and Final Fantasy VII Remake are the same in name only. They're completely different games, and that's what I want for KOTOR.
That's actually a great point. Like, I mean, obviously the characters are the same, but they are in some ways different games, But I can remember. God, I played Final Fantasy VII I played back in 98, 97? I don't remember.
I remember when, I don't remember what magazine it was, but it came in the demo when it came with the demo disc before the actual game launched. Remember back in those PS1 days when you used to get the demos with the magazine?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake's more like Advent. What is it? Advent? What was it? Advent Children? Was
Advent Children, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, I do want to say, if you remember Advent Children and you love that, do yourself a favor and watch Arcane on Netflix.
I've been watching that. Yeah.
One of the best animated things I've seen in God knows how long.
Yeah,
like it is amazing.
Good. I've been watching it. Yeah,
and I really, even if you loved Into the Spider-Verse,
it looks amazing on the Godlid, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. What episode are you up to?
I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Oh, wait till you get to the end of the episode 3.
Yeah, no, I've only watched the first 2.
You are not going to be happy in a good way. It hits you in the feels.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Look, gentlemen, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. It's getting close to 11 o'clock, and I know you got a hard stop, Everboard, so I don't want to keep you tied up. But no, I want to first say thank you everyone in the live chat for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it as always. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so. Again, really, always appreciate the support. And if you're new to the show, consider subscribing as well. So, but I'm going to give a big thank you to these 2 gentlemen here. Everborn, always a pleasure having you on, man. Always enjoy the conversation. It's always great gaming conversation. It's refreshing.
Likewise, sir. Likewise.
Very refreshing, to say the least. And then Game Logic, always a pleasure having you on as well. Again, always refreshing having just good game dialogue, like I feel like I don't get that a lot, especially on social media. So
we go out during the day to fight the good fight, and then we come back in here to kick back.
Yeah, exactly.
Kick back, and in my case, apologize for Halo.
Yeah, no, but I love
certified Halo apologist.
I love having people on that have been gaming a long time because I feel like that matters. Not that if you haven't been gaming a long time, it doesn't matter, but I feel like it just brings a different perspective to the conversation because we've had so much experience playing different games and have seen just tremendous paradigm shifts in the industry that some people haven't had the pleasure or had the experience seeing. So it's just always nice, because again, I've been doing this since 1983. And it's just it's nice. It's just nice to have these kind of conversations. So. And it's not all fanboy stuff, which is nice too, and console war nonsense. But no, I want to thank you, gentlemen, both again for coming on and hanging out with us tonight. And Hey, open door policy. Anytime you guys want to join it,
let me add one thing, Brad. The reason I don't console war is because I put that away with Sega when I was a kid, because I was a big time Sega console warrior. I'm telling you right now, if Microsoft ever buys Sega, I will be right back in the console war streets.
Oh, here we go.
With my Sonic hat on. I'm telling you now. Just I want you to understand.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
I remember that. We got blood on Mortal Kombat. You don't.
Oh, okay, but who had the better Aladdin?
Sega did.
Don't get me. Okay, good.
No,
You're
Sega had blood too in Mortal Kombat. It was Nintendo that did.
Yeah, no, they did. Sega had blood. They had the better Aladdin. They had the better Rocket Knight game. I don't know if
Aladdin was actually pretty good. I remember playing that. I remember playing that and be like, oh my God, looks like the movie.
On that note, a funny aside is I was taking my youngest kid to, I think, soccer practice or something a couple weeks ago, and had a podcast on in the car and had to stop it because she was asking questions, and I had to explain to her that because she was familiar with Sega because she knows that they do Sonic the Hedgehog on her tablet, and I had to explain to her how Sega used to be a hardware company that also made consoles.
Did she cry?
Was she like, wow?
Yeah, she was like mind blown. She was like Xbox and PlayStation. I was like, maybe we've done some good in the world, kid. Did you
tell her about the Nomad?
Oh no, I didn't. I did tell her that I was a Sega kid also, though, and that's where my gaming roots went back to.
No, man, I'd love it because technically, if in a few years from now, if they do get acquired, theoretically that makes them back in the hardware business, and then I'm a kid again.
That's funny.
Back at it.
That is funny. All right. Well, everyone in the live chat, thank you again for hanging out with us tonight. And Game Logic, Everborn, always a pleasure. BRAP will be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss more gaming-related news. And I think what are the Game Awards? Isn't that next week? Is that coming up next week? I don't remember.
I think it comes out the day after Halo. So, yeah, it's definitely next week. By the way, I want to tell everybody about my Kickstarter, which has 5 days to go. I'll just put the link in the chat.
Go ahead. Yep.
You guys check it out. We're doing this thing. We hit our goal, but we're trying to hit our stretch goal so that we can upgrade everyone to free hardcover books. I do a whole comic series, so if you guys can check this out. We did a whole set of animations, and you can see some of the game that we did there. But this is the new book that we're releasing. So links in the chat. Check it out, and I appreciate everybody. Just share it out if you can too. If you can't donate, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please support these gentlemen. They're super talented. And everyone will have to get you back on again soon. Same as you, Game Logic, have to get you guys back on again soon. And next week we'll give you our Halo impressions on the campaign. Well, I don't know. Maybe I might even have a show. I might just stream Halo campaign. That might be the show next week.
Oh, I'm going offline for a few days when that comes out. Like, I don't care about Twitter. I'm taking a day off on Wednesday, so that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I can't. Work's just too busy. But I'm definitely gonna wake up early and play and put a couple hours in before work. So hopefully, So we'll have that. We'll have those impressions next week on BRAP. So other than that, everyone have a great evening, great rest of the week. We'll catch you next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We're out. Peace. All right, we're